My fiancée said, I'm keeping my dating apps active until the wedding. I need a backup plan. I said, that's honest at least. Then I matched with her on Tinder using a fake profile, screen recorded our conversation, and showed it to her family at the rehearsal dinner. When her dad stood up and asked her to explain, I, 31 male, proposed to my fiancée after 3.5 years together. We've been living together for 2 of those years. Split rent on a 2-bedroom apartment. Had a dog together. Share a Netflix account. The whole domestic package. I'm a project coordinator for a mid-sized construction firm. She works in pharmaceutical sales. Between us, we were pulling in decent money. Not wealthy, but comfortable. We'd saved about $14,000 in a shared wedding fund over the past year. That's important later. So about 5 months before the wedding, I'm doing laundry and her phone buzzes on the nightstand. I wasn't snooping. I literally glanced over because I thought it might be the DoorDash driver. It was a Tinder notification. My stomach just dropped. You know that feeling where your body registers the betrayal before your brain catches up? Like your chest gets tight and your hands go cold and your brain is still going, no, there's an explanation. I didn't touch the phone. I sat on the edge of the bed for about 20 minutes just staring at the wall. Then I waited for her to come home. When she walked in, I didn't scream, didn't throw anything. I just said, hey, I saw a Tinder notification on your phone. And here's where it gets wild. She didn't even flinch. She put her purse down, kicked off her shoes, and said, and I swear on everything, oh, yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table and told me, completely calm, that she was keeping her dating apps active until the wedding. She said, and I quote, I need a backup plan. What if things don't work out? I don't want to start from zero. I just sat there, blinking. She then hit me with, it's not like I'm sleeping with anyone. I'm just keeping my options open. Honestly, you should be flattered that I'm still choosing you. Flattered. I said, that's honest at least. She smiled like she'd won the conversation. Said, see, this is why we work. We can talk about anything. I nodded, went to bed, and that night, lying next to her while she scrolled through her phone, wonder what app, I made my decision. Not out of anger, out of clarity. See, I'm not the blow up and make a scene type. Never have been. I process things slowly. And what I processed that night was simple. She didn't respect me. She didn't respect what we were building. And she sure as hell didn't respect the $14,000 we'd saved or the 200 people we'd invited to watch us commit to each other. So I started planning. The next day, I borrowed my buddy's photos with his permission. Told him I needed them for something and that I'd explain later. He's a decent-looking guy, works in finance, has that whole clean-cut vibe. I created a Tinder profile. Name, Derek. Age, 33. Bio, just moved here. Looking for something real. Basic but effective. I set the distance to 3 miles and started swiping. Took about 40 minutes before I found her profile. And let me tell you, reading your fiancé's Tinder bio while she's in the next room watching Bravo is a surreal experience. Her bio said, not looking for anything serious. Let's just see where it goes, smiling face with smiling eyes. Not looking for anything serious. We were 5 months from a wedding. I had a tux fitting scheduled for that Saturday. I swiped right. She matched almost immediately. And then I did something I'd never done before. I turned on screen recording and started chatting with my own fiancé. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek and my fiancé had some very interesting conversations. She was flirty, responsive. She told Derek she was technically in a relationship, but it's complicated. She said she felt stuck and was just exploring. She sent selfies, the same bathroom mirror she uses every morning while I make coffee. She never once mentioned the engagement, never mentioned me by name, never mentioned the wedding that her parents were helping pay for. I saved everything, every message, every voice note she sent, every selfie. Screen recorded the whole thing, backed it up to my cloud, and put copies on 2 different USB drives. Then I kept living my life. Went to work, came home, cooked dinner, walked the dog, kissed her goodnight, all while carrying this grenade in my pocket. I know some of you are going to say that was manipulative. Maybe it was. But she told me to my face she was keeping dating apps active and expected me to just accept it. I didn't confront her because I already knew who she was. I just needed everyone else to see it too. The next few months were honestly the hardest of my life, pretending everything was normal while planning what I was going to do. I lost about 12 pounds just from stress. My buddy, the one whose photos I used, kept checking in on me. He was the only person who knew. During this time, my fiancée's entitlement ramped up in ways I didn't think possible. First, she decided the $14,000 wedding fund wasn't enough and told me I needed to pull from my personal savings to cover upgrades. She wanted a premium open bar package, an extra $3,200. When I pushed back, she said, "My parents' friends expect a certain standard. Don't embarrass me." Then she started dictating the guest list. My college roommate? Cut. He's weird. My coworker, who'd been my mentor for 4 years? Cut. I don't want work people there. But her sorority sisters she hadn't spoken to in 6 years? All invited. Every single one. Then, and this one really got me, she told me she wanted me to sign a postnup within the first year of marriage. Not a prenup. A postnup. She brought it up casually while we were grocery shopping. My mom thinks it's smart. Just in case. Just in case of what? The backup plan? I said sure to everything, because none of it mattered anymore. Meanwhile, Derek was still in her DMs. The conversations had gotten more intense. She'd started complaining about me to a fictional man. Told him I was emotionally unavailable and boring. Said I didn't have ambition. This from a guy who manages $3 million construction projects. She asked Derek to meet up for coffee twice. He made excuses both times. I obviously couldn't let that happen. But the intent was there. In writing. Screen recorded. 3 weeks before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner was set. Her parents were hosting it at a nice Italian restaurant. About 60 people, close family, wedding party, a few family friends. Her dad had put down a $2,800 deposit. I'd been carrying this weight for months, barely sleeping, running on caffeine and cold showers. But I had a plan, and I was sticking to it. The night of the rehearsal dinner, I showed up in my Navy suit, smiled, shook hands, hugged her mom, clinked glasses with her dad, who'd always been decent to me, a straight shooter type, old school values, treated me like a son. After appetizers, the best man was supposed to give a short toast. Instead, I stood up and said I wanted to say something first. The room got quiet. My fiancée was beaming. She probably thought I was about to say something romantic. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the portable speaker I'd brought for music later, and said, "Before we celebrate tomorrow, I think everyone deserves to know what kind of marriage they'd be toasting to." And then I played the audio. Not all of it. I'm not a monster. I played a 3-minute compilation. Her telling Derek she was just exploring. Her saying the relationship was complicated. Her calling me boring. Her asking to meet up. Her saying she wasn't looking for anything serious. 5 months before the wedding. The room went dead silent. My fiancée's face went white, then red. Then she grabbed my arm and hissed, "What are you doing?" I pulled my arm back and said, loud enough for the room, "I'm giving you the backup plan you wanted." Her mom immediately started crying. Her sister was staring at her phone like she could somehow fix this through the screen. Her bridesmaids looked like they wanted to evaporate. And then her dad stood up. He's a big guy, retired military, the type who doesn't raise his voice because he doesn't need to. He looked at his daughter and said, very quietly, "Is this real?" She started stammering. "It's taken out of context. He set me up. This is entrapment." Her dad held up his hand. "I asked you a simple question. Is this real?" She couldn't say no, because it was. He turned to me and said, "Son, I'm sorry." Then he looked at his daughter and said, "We need to talk." "Not here." He walked out. Her mom followed. My fiancé ran after them, heels clicking on the tile like a countdown. I sat back down, finished my bread. My buddy texted me, "How'd it go?" I replied, "Bread's good." I left 20 minutes later. A few of her family members actually shook my hand on the way out. One of her uncles said, "You did the right thing, kid." Her cousin, who I'd always gotten along with, just gave me a nod. That was the last time I was in the same room with her family for a while. All right, so a lot of people are asking for the aftermath. Here it is. The wedding was obviously canceled. But canceling a wedding that's 3 weeks out isn't just an emotional nightmare. It's a financial one. The venue had a partial refund policy. We got back about 40% of the deposit, which was $2,600 out of $6,500. The caterer? Non-refundable. That was $4,800 gone. Photographer had a cancellation fee, $500. The DJ was cool about it and refunded everything. Florist kept $1,200. All in all, we lost about $9,000 between us that just evaporated. And here's where it got ugly. She wanted me to cover all the losses. Her argument? You're the one who blew up the wedding, so you should pay for it. I said no. She made the choices that led here. I just made them public. She got her mom involved. Her mom called me 4 days after the rehearsal dinner and left a voicemail that was basically 7 minutes of guilt tripping. How I'd humiliated their family. How I'd ruined her daughter's reputation. How the Christian thing to do would be to pay for the damages and walk away quietly. I didn't respond. Then her sister texted me, and this is where the entitlement really peaked. Her sister actually said, "You know she was always too good for you, right? She was settling. You should be grateful she even said yes." I screenshotted that and sent it to her dad. Not to be petty, okay, maybe a little, but because he deserved to know what his other daughter thought of the guy he'd welcomed into his family. He replied, "I'll handle it." A week after the dinner, I moved out of the apartment. Our lease was month to month at that point, so I gave 30 days notice and started packing. She wasn't there. She'd been staying at her mom's since the dinner. I took my stuff, left hers, and dropped the dog off at her sister's place because technically she'd adopted him before we met. That one hurt. I love that dog. Now here's the part nobody warns you about: the mutual friends. We had a pretty intertwined social circle. And when something like this happens, people pick sides fast. About half our friends reached out to me with support. The other half went radio silent, which told me everything I needed to know. Her best friend actually DM'd me on Instagram and called me a psycho for setting a trap. I replied, "I didn't set a trap. I held up a mirror." She blocked me. Cool. But the real kicker came 2 weeks later. She tried to get me to pay for the non-refundable wedding costs through a demand letter. Not from a lawyer, from one of those online legal template services. It wasn't even properly formatted. She was claiming emotional distress and financial damages resulting from intentional sabotage of a planned event. I took it to an actual attorney. He read it, laughed, literally laughed, and said it had zero legal standing. He said if she actually tried to sue, the screen recordings would work against her in terms of showing the relationship was already broken before the dinner. He told me to ignore it unless I got served with real papers. I never did. Her dad reached out to me about 10 days after everything went down. He asked to meet for coffee. I said yes because, honestly, I respected the man. We sat down at a diner, and he told me a few things. First, he said he'd pulled his financial contribution to the wedding, which had been about $8,000, and that his daughter had been furious about it. She'd apparently screamed at him that he was choosing a stranger over his own blood. He told her, he wasn't a stranger until you made him one. Second, he told me that her mom had come around. Not to my side exactly, but to reality. She'd apparently found additional dating app activity on her daughter's phone. Stuff that predated our engagement. Profiles on Hinge, Bumble, the works. Some conversations going back over a year. A year. While I was ring shopping and planning a proposal, she was swiping. Her dad looked me in the eye and said, "I wish she turned out different. I'm sorry you got caught in it." I told him I didn't blame him. I'm in it. Now, the financial cleanup. The $14,000 wedding fund was in a shared savings account. We'd agreed early on that it was 50-50 contributions. I withdrew my half, $7,000, and left hers. She tried to argue that I owed her more because of the emotional labor she'd put into planning. I didn't engage. Between the wedding losses and the moving costs, I was out about $12,000 total when everything was said and done. Not a small number for a guy making $68,000 a year. It hurt. I ate ramen for a solid month. I picked up overtime shifts. I sold some stuff I didn't need. She moved back into the apartment. Kept the furniture I'd left behind, which included a couch I'd bought. I let it go. Not worth the fight. Her professional life took a hit too, but not because of me. Turns out, Pharmaceutical sales is a small world. One of her coworkers was at the rehearsal dinner, a cousin of one of the guests. Word got around her office. She wasn't fired or anything, but apparently the social dynamic shifted. People looked at her different. She transferred to a different territory within a few months. As for me, look, I'm not going to pretend I came out of this feeling great. I didn't. I had about 3 weeks where I barely got off the couch. I called in sick twice, which I never do. I sat in my car in the parking lot at work one morning for 45 minutes because I couldn't make myself go inside. My buddy, the photo guy, dragged me out for beers one night and just let me talk for 3 hours. Didn't offer advice. Didn't try to fix it. Just listened. That mattered more than he'll ever know. I started seeing a therapist about a month after the split. Not because I was falling apart, but because I realized I'd spent 3.5 years with someone who didn't respect me, and I needed to figure out why I was okay with that for so long. That's still a work in progress. The last contact I had with my ex was about 2 months after the breakup. She texted me at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. "You ruined my life." I typed out like 5 different responses, deleted all of them, finally just sent, "You had a backup plan? Use it." She never texted again. It's been about 4 months. I'm in a smaller apartment. It's quiet. I've got a secondhand couch that's actually more comfortable than the one I left behind. I started cooking real meals again instead of microwaving everything. I'm not dating. Not ready. My therapist says that's fine and that there's no timeline for this stuff. Some days I feel solid. Some days I hear a song or see a commercial for wedding rings and my chest gets tight. That's just how it goes, I guess. Her dad still checks in occasionally. A text here and there. He sent me a photo of the dog last week. The little guy looks good, fat and happy. That made my day. I don't regret the rehearsal dinner. I know some people will say I should have just walked away quietly. Canceled the wedding. Sent a text. Been the bigger person. Maybe. But I spent months watching someone I loved lie to my face while I paid for a wedding she had no intention of honoring. I think the people in that room deserve to know why they weren't getting dressed up the next day. Was it messy? Yeah. Was it dramatic? Sure. Would I do it again? Every single time. To the people telling me I should have just left, you're probably right in theory. But theory doesn't account for the feeling of finding your fiancé on Tinder and being told to be flattered about it. Theory doesn't factor in $14,000 in wedding savings and a woman who wanted you to sign a post-nup just in case her backup plan panned out. Sometimes the cleanest move isn't the quiet one. Anyway, that's my story. Thanks for reading. I'm going to go heat up some leftovers and watch something dumb on TV. Peace.